Hello and welcome. We are at Chapel Hill-Chauncy Hall School and we are talking about the Back to CHCH reopening plan. And through a series of videos, we're going to be going through all different elements of what school is going to look like in the fall here, from academics to health services to food services to cleaning and sanitizing. And we're going to talk to people across campus and really give you a look at what things are going to look like here and show you some of the thought that went into these decisions and how we're making them. So right off the bat here, we're introducing Dr. Lance Conrad, head of school. We're going to sort of frame out what we're talking about here and some of the different things we're going to see in the Back to CHCH plan, which you can see at chch.org/reopen. So, Lance, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks.
So I just want to see, can you frame kind of where we are right now with the launching of this plan?
Absolutely. Where we are now has actually been a long journey. So even going back to March, April, and May, when we spent 9 weeks doing distance learning, we learned a lot of lessons along the way. And we've engaged in many conversations with all sorts of community members, from students to parents to faculty, staff, and even our board of trustees, to determine what returning to campus is going to look like in the fall. And in those conversations, we've really determined that looking at 3 different scenarios that a lot of schools throughout the Commonwealth have been looking at. On one end of the continuum, you've got the return to campus learning with not a lot of restrictions in place, kind of normal operating procedures. That's at one end of the continuum. At the other end of the continuum, you've got the idea of going back to complete remote learning, distance learning like we did in the spring. And we're falling somewhere in between. We're doing what we're calling a hybrid model, which is an opportunity for students that wish to come back. And there are so many students and families that are very anxious and looking forward to that opportunity to return to school with face-to-face learning. They're going to be able to do that. But then there's also another group of students that might not be able to return to campus. These might be international students that have not been able to secure a visa, student visa for this year, or they have travel restrictions. But they also might be domestic students that don't feel comfortable yet returning to campus learning, or they might have households with compromised family health situations, and they're not comfortable yet returning to campus. So we're going to make sure that there's an opportunity for them to engage in teaching and learning from a distance at the same time while we're doing on-campus learning.
That's great. And so we're going to go into the details of what these plans look like in the different areas, but we did have guiding principles. And so I wanted to just see if I could talk to you about a little bit of what these guiding principles are and what they kind of mean to this plan and how they kind of played into it. So first we had safety. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. Safety has been, number one topic of conversation for the campus community. Thinking about not just how do we create a safe learning environment for our students, but even more importantly, in many ways, we've got residents that live here on campus 24/7. About a third of our faculty and staff members live on campus, and we do have a boarding community. And this is something that we've been very conscientious about, thinking what are the necessary and needed health and safety protocols and guidelines that we need to put in place in order to achieve the optimal, safest environment with best practices that we can. We've been predominantly leaning on a couple of different resources to help us with that. Certainly the National Center for Disease Controls. The CDC has given us so many great guidelines that we're looking at and following closely. And then also there are DESE guidelines. DESE is the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And even though that's geared for public schools, there's a lot of great pieces of information and guidelines that we're following, and they often outline things as best practices and better practices. So we're paying very close attention to those things. And then finally, we actually have contracted with 17 other Boston area independent schools, a group called Environmental Health and Engineering. And EH&E is putting out a report that is going to give us many of the very specific safety protocols that you need to have on campus for an independent school community.
Great, thank you. And I mean, that plays right into, so on-campus instruction is one of the next guiding principles. So tell me about why that is there, why that's such a high level of importance.
Yeah, so the very mission of the school is to teach the way students learn. And we know that that's a greater challenge than ever because we have actually hurdles to cross in terms of how we can teach this year. So yes, there's going to be social distancing of 6 feet whenever absolutely possible. Certainly in the classroom, seating is going to be redesigned. We are going to create more sections. All students, faculty, staff, 100% of the time on campus are going to wear face coverings. This is a requirement of the school, and it has been since July 1st, and that's super important. In the classrooms, we understand that there are going to be hand sanitizers and stations and certain wiping down procedures that our teachers and our students are going to need to engage in regularly. Addressing things like bathroom and ventilation. These are all pieces of the return to the academic program plan for us.
That's great. And we will get to look inside a classroom later too, so we'll
Great.
get to see a little bit what that looks like. So academic coherence and continuity. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so this is really important for a college prep school. We expect that 100% of our students are going to apply to get in to college and university, and we need to make sure that there is a robust academic program that continues to push their learning forward in a college prep learning environment. And certainly a lot of schools were challenged by this last spring, and even debating questions about how do you assess student work during a distance learning environment. So we are looking very closely this summer with our curriculum committee at how do you best assess student work from afar, but also in person, of course, in a mixed hybrid paradigm that we're going to be addressing. Preparing our students for a significantly altered educational world now and in the future is our charge. And what we see taking place today in terms of changes in learning environment and having more online remote distance learning opportunities for students, this is going to continue well beyond 2020. This is for years to come, and we need to make sure that our students are well prepared for college and university learning that is going to have a different shape and scope than it has had in the last several years.
So yeah, so you just talked about it in the answer, how much is changing and how much we don't know is coming in the future. So flexibility and adaptability is part of this too. So how does that play into this plan?
Yeah, and, you know, as a school leader, that's one of the toughest things for me. I like to plan. I like plans, strategic planning. I like the return to campus plan and spelling it all out. But there is so much that is unknown as we continue to work day to day to day throughout weeks and weeks into the beginning of the school year. And even once we launch the school year, there's still going to be things that we are going to need to change and alter as further guidelines, further protocols come out. You know, there is a bit of you're building the plane as you're flying it, but we are going to try to make sure that this is a safe and secure plane before we even leave the tarmac. The flexible nature of schooling has to be more profound than ever. And we are asking all of our community members, whether they're students, parents, faculty, staff members, to really be as flexible and nimble as they possibly can. We often talk to our students about having a growth mindset and positivity in terms of their approach to teaching and learning. We actually all need to step back as an adults and also maintain that growth mindset and not have a negative mindset where they feel like they can't do it. I do believe in the power of having a can-do attitude. We're not going to be able to do everything we want to do, but I think it's very fair to say, let us make the best effort we can to put out best practices for an optimal teaching and learning environment in the fall.
Perfect. And final question, and so speaking of mindset that you're talking about, what's something you're looking forward to this year?
I am really looking forward to getting back to campus and getting on-campus learning. We are very realistic in knowing that Governor Baker of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may at any point look to shut down campuses this fall or winter, as he did last spring. But as of now, we are planning on opening with in-school, on-campus classes, and to get our students back here and our faculty engaged in teaching and learning, and that face-to-face social enterprise is really, really important. And I'm looking forward to rebuilding our campus community after being away for so long.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you. So thank you so much. So yes, we have the plan here. We're going to go into more details into specific areas, and chch.org/reopen to see more of the plan and more of the videos that we have around our reopening. So thank you.